Okay, we have Bing Copeland and Jackie Mayer, and they were probably two of the most instrumental people in getting the plaque built, made, paid for installation eventually at 117 Manhattan Beach Boulevard in front of the Strand House, which was Dale Velzy's surfboard shop in the, could be the late 1949, early 1950 period. And arguably one of the world's first surfboard shops, if not the first surfboard shop, where there was commercially made surfboards. He put a logo on his boards and sold them, and definitely needs to be recognized. He grew up in Hermosa. He built the boards in Manhattan. He later on built boards over in Venice. But he was the, you'll see in the slideshow, there's a Shaper family tree. Dale Velzy was basically at the top of the Shaper family tree. Anybody that built boards in the South Bay learned from someone who learned from Velzy. So he's the man. This is Matt Velzy, Dale's son.
Good. Thank you.
Dale just came in from Hawaii, and he brought some of his dad's tools of the trade with him to donate to the museum. So these are actually hand tools that were made in the shaping of balsa boards back in the day, before the Clark foam, styrofoam, or foam boards came along. So we're glad to have Matt here and this donation to the museum.
There's one in there you didn't see.
The big one?
No, there's another one that you didn't see.
Okay, the little one? Okay. This is the little one. Yeah. So these are all original Dale Velzy tools.
You welded that thing on to save his thumb from getting splinters.
Yeah. So, so anyway, without ado, why don't you stand over there, Jackie, and on this side of the table, and you can both grab a corner of that towel. And this is the Dale Velzy plaque that we put in the sidewalk in front of the 117 Manhattan Beach Blvd. And it's a big thanks to these two and several other people in the room, and I have some of them thanked on a slide in the slideshow. But it's been a labor of love for almost 10 years, 11 years, this effort. So don't ever give up if you have an idea on something, and they're living testimony that you'd never give up. Anyway, we're gonna start off with Jackie to say a few words about the process in getting the plaque made and what it meant to her.
You're probably interested how this started. I take pictures in Manhattan Beach a lot, and people know me for that. So I took a picture of the Strand House, which is this big fancy restaurant, and Bing liked it. So I said, we should have a plaque to honor Velzy at that spot. And he said, yeah, we should. That was 11 years ago. And we had just so much opposition. You can't prove there was even a surfboard shop there. It was just ridiculous. So 11 years later, and with 3 okays with our original statement, we had to change it. We finally got it made. And thanks. And I really want to thank number one Bing, because he stuck with me through the whole thing. Then Roy Bream spent 3 months with me on the phone getting letters of proving that it started in 50 and that it was the world's first. And they're back in the back if you want to look at them. A lot of top names. Hopefully you recognize names. Anyway, so I'm not going to think. No.
What are you talking about?
Okay. I said I wouldn't talk much, but. And then I just want to thank John Leninger for his support. He hasn't. Yeah. And of course, there's so many people who helped, but the Hermosa Museum for picking this up at the last second when we couldn't get anyone to help us celebrate this. So thank you all for being here. And you all know Bing Copeland.
I have to tell you a little bit about my first introduction to LZ, or first time I met Velzy. I was 12 and a half or 13 years old. I lived up on 9th and Highland in Manhattan, and I remember going down to the beach and looking at the waves, and I looked down towards the Manhattan Pier and I saw these guys riding on surfboards, and I went, man, that looks cool. So I walked down there and I walked out on the pier, and I was standing on the railing watching the guys surf, and it was really unbelievable, and I thought, I gotta learn how to do that. And while I was standing there, this other guy who was the bait boy on the end of the pier, who was walking down the pier, and he had on the rail, and we started talking to each other, and it was Greg Knoll. And so we both were enthralled with the surf and the surfing, and as we were walking back along the lifeguard tower, Velzy was in the tower. He was the lifeguard. And he said to us, you boys want to try one of our boards? I said, sure, we'd love to. So he said, we got one down on the beach. So we went down, and in those days, this was even before Simmons, actually, boards, and before foam boards, and the beginning of balsa. And he had the redwood and balsa board that weighed about 100 pounds. And so Greg and I drug it across the sand and paddled out with it and tried to catch a few waves, pearled a bunch. And I remember when I finally caught one, didn't pearl, stood up on it, went straight off to the beach, and I went, man, this is for me, this is my sport. So from then on, it was hanging around with Velzy, and shortly after that is when he opened the shop, the first shop, and I sort of became a mascot there. I cut templates for him and sanded boards and patch boards, and he would even, sometimes a pretty lady would come and honk the horn at the curb, and he'd say, watch the shop, boys, I'll be back in an hour. So we did, we watched the shop. And it was really an honor. He treated me more like a son. On any given day, he'd say in his Velzy gruff voice, maybe Mac could do it better than me, but he'd say, hey, Bingo, let's go down to Lulu's and grab a cup of mud. And which meant, go have coffee, And so we would do that, and it was over those conversations with the Hawk that I learned about girls and surfing and just life as a teenager. I referred to him as my mentor, but not my mentor in building surfboards, because in those days I never thought that I would be in the surfboard business. That came later, and at that time I wouldn't have even thought of competing with Velzy. He was my hero, for sure. So, what else would I say about him? I had a bunch of things in my mind, but...
What about when the shop opened?
Tell them how you got the name Hawk.
Well, I think there's different versions of that, but my version is and probably other people's too, is after a sandstorm, he would walk the beach, and he had very good vision. He could spot, as the sand blows away, if there's a coin on the beach, the coin sits on a little pile of sand, and he could see them like a block away. So I think that's how he got the name Hawk.
What about the shop? What do you remember about the shop?
I remember hanging out and cleaning up the shop, and actually I even slept in the shop a bunch. You had a little bunk bed in there. In fact, one time, I'm trying to think of something I can say that I shouldn't say.
I only heard about that. Did he ever shape the paddle boards in that shop? 17-foot long?
No, he didn't shape racing boards in that shop that I know of.
Pretty small shop.
It was a very small shop, yeah. So
That's the Venice shop there.
That shop he shaped. Oh, there's my sister. That shop.
yeah, but that was, what year was that? You think?
55.
Yeah, 55 is when I went into the service with. I went to Hawaii with Sonny Vardaman, Mike Bright, Rick Stoner. Who else? Charlie Davis. Did Charlie go with us? No? Who went with us?
Steve Voorhees.
Steve Voorhees, yeah. So we were in Hawaii. All with our Velzy boards. I mean, we all rode Velzy boards. And that's where we learned to ride pretty good sized waves. We started in Waikiki. We had a little house on Liliuokalani Street that we rented, and we slept in that, and so we could surf Queens every day with our Velzy boards. And then when the winter time came, we went out to the North Shore and started surfing Makaha. And luckily we got there when the waves were kind of small, and as surfing every day, we got to where we could ride the waves as they got, well, as big as, 18, 20 feet? Sonny, you think?
25.
I just remember some really big waves. What else am I doing?
You need some help, Herb?
Yeah.
I'll come up there. No, I'll finish.
Well, no.
We could do a dual thing. I'm trying to give you a hand.
Okay, Paul Holmes.
Oh, I'm upstairs.
He wrote the Velzy book.
He wrote the Bing book too.
This guy knows.
Did too.
And he wrote the
I read his book as well. I thought you needed a hand up here.
I do.
This Plaque saga is like, it's been taking like forever to come together, and everybody who was involved in the making of it, and Jacqueline May and Matt and Bing and all these people, a lot of other, Tom Horton, a lot of other people deserve a big round of applause.
Yeah, he is.
Now, my role in it was marginal at best. I wrote a letter for Jackie, that was about it, and took a couple of phone calls. Little did I know when I wrote Velzy's biography that all these years later, this whole thing about where this shop was opened and when and blah, blah, blah would come back to haunt me. Because, I spent hours and hours with Velzy and drinking and interviewing him. And he told me a lot of things. And he had a really good memory. I had no reason to doubt his memory. And I had no reason to doubt his stories, which were incredibly colorful. But I never came across any that didn't actually pan out and be, pretty accurate, actually. He was really good about that. Now, who's laughing? He told some amazing stories, obviously. He had an incredible life. So when he told me that, after he got kicked off the beach, first at Hermosa and then at Manhattan Beach, because he was doing his shaping there on saws, is on the sand, and the balsa wood shavings were blowing all over the beach. And officials came down from the city and said, Mr. Velzy, I doubt they said Mr. Velzy probably, but you can't be doing that here. You're littering all over the beach, and you've got to go. And so Velzy said, oh, well, screw it. Okay, I'll have to pack this up. And he wandered up
from the beach at Manhattan and saw this vacant shop. And he found out how he could rent it, and it was cheap, so he rented it, and he opened the shop. Now, it was either late 49 or early 50, right, Bing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you know, I had no reason to doubt that until various people who should remain unnamed came back. Oh, we can't prove that it was then. It might not have been then. It may have been some other time. And the only picture that exists that you've seen in the slideshow was taken in 1952. So what? You know, that's when the picture was taken. That doesn't mean nothing. Right? Everything else about what Dale told me about that rang true. And all I didn't do was I didn't go up to Sacramento and dig around in the archives of the State Board of Equalization to find out if indeed he did, as he told me, have the California's first resale number for the category of surfboards.
Wow.
Now, if somebody wants to put up a whole bunch of money, we can all go up there and root around in those archives and see if we can find that document. But I don't really want to. And I doubt if anybody else does. And certainly the people who raised all the objections didn't bother to go to that time or expense either. So here we all are today. It's all good. The plaque will be there. Dale's memory will be forever etched on a brass plaque in the concrete on the side of the road, and it's all good. So good to see you all. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Bing. I think
How about Sonny?
we'll let Sonny do a little talking.
Yeah,
He has some good memories, I'm sure.
Thank you, Bing. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Mark. I guess they just about said it all, but I'll take it to a personal, some of my memories maybe I can share with you of Velzy. I'm a Hermosa guy. I grew up on the beach in Hermosa, moved here in 1938, and me and my pals would pal around the beach down there next to the Hermosa Pier. We were body surfing and riding boogie boards. Then we got on the canvas surf mats. We'd watch the guys at the Hermosa Pier surf, some of the old lifeguards and the members of the Hermosa Beach Surf Club, which was right behind the lifeguard headquarters. And they would be riding some of the hardwood boards and then some of the kook boxes, you know, the plywood boards. And as the boards would wash in to the shoreline, we'd grab them and kind of push them out, try to ride the whitewater, you know. We thought that was pretty thrilling. And we got acquainted, and out of those guys out there, there was one guy that was pretty much of a hot shot. His name was Dale Velzy. He was younger than these guys. This was Hoppy Schwartz and Leroy Granis and Doc Ball, Jim Bailey, some of the original surf club members there. Anyway, we were thrilled to kind of try the surfboards. And later on, we bought some kook boxes and started riding them and had them for a couple of years. And then the balsa wood came in. Velzy, by that time, had shaped on the beach in Hermosa and then moved to Manhattan and then eventually up the surf shop in Manhattan Beach. He started making balsa boards. So we sold our kook boxes and went up to Velzy's shop, rode our bikes up there, and we all started ordering the balsa boards. We met our counterparts from Manhattan Beach and Bing Copeland and Greg Knoll. And we became lifelong friends after that with Bing and Greg and Velzy for a lot of years. And so we got our balsa boards and we formed a surf club in Hermosa called the Surfing Seals. And we were in high school and we would go up there to Velzy's shop and hang out with all the guys and listen to his stories. Very charismatic man. He was in the Merchant Marines and he sailed off into exotic ports And he had a surfboard on board the boat, and he would paddle ashore and surf in some of these exotic places. And he would tell about all those stories at the shop. And in particular, Hawaii. He talked about the big, beautiful waves in Hawaii. We were motivated. He said, if you guys want to go, what you got to do is try out for this coming spring lifeguard test with the county lifeguards and save your money. I'll set you guys up with some tickets to Hawaii with this friend of his called Dave Rockland, who sold tickets on this rubber band airline to Hawaii, and we did that. Where's Bing? You remember that, Bing? Anyway, we loaded the boards up. We passed the lifeguard test, saved some money. After we graduated from high school, we were ready. In October, we drove to the Burbank airport with our tickets that Dave Rockland got us, boarded our rubber band airplane. They didn't know what to do with the surfboards. We showed up with 5 surfboards. There were 5 of us. We got up into the belly of the plane and had to load them. We didn't want them to break off the skags or ding them up. Anyway, off we went. 12-hour flight to Hawaii. It was pretty luxury. They gave us a box lunch for 12 hours. And we got over there, and you said George Kapu was on that flight. Yeah, anyway, Dale Velzy, we all had this Hawaiian friend from Waikiki, and he came with us as kind of our guide. Velzy paid him. I didn't know that, but Velzy paid George Kapu as kind of our guide, bought him an airline ticket. And when we arrived in Hawaii, his sister picked us up and took her to her house. We spent the next couple of days at her house before they drove us to Waikiki, and we rented some cheap apartment there, which Bing mentioned. And then eventually we got our car, drove out to Hawaii, surfed for three months over there at Makaha, drove around to we drove around Kaena Point to Sunset Beach, which was, in 55, was pretty much of a no man's land. Nobody there. And then after the 3 months, we all went into service because the draft board was breathing down our necks. Bing and Rick went in the Coast Guard. Steve Voorhees and I joined the Navy at Pearl Harbor. Bing stayed on. No, Bing and Rick stayed on in the Coast Guard. Mike Bright stayed on and trained paddling. Velzy shipped him. Did you see some of those photographs of the flame board? He entered the Diamond Head race with all these hot shots. He won it. He was so far out in front, they didn't even know he was in the race. So with all that, after 2 years of service, we came home. Velzy had been in Venice, partnered up with Hap Jacobs, and then he went on to get involved in a lot of surf shops around, and we were all motivated. And Velzy was really, as some of these people talked about, he was the first one to put a logo on a board. He was the first one to put printed t-shirts. He was the first one to do a lot of things. He sponsored Bruce Brown in his first surf movie. And the craze started. Velzy was the creator of all that surfing boom. And in the 60s, it was a boom. Bing started making surfboards. Greg started making surfboards. Jacobs was making surfboards already. Dewey, Weber. I started making surfboards. We all learned our trade from Velzy, and Velzy was the man. And what else? I'm getting to be like you, Ben. Back to myself, personal. Remember Dale. I appreciated how he motivated us, particularly me, to be a lifeguard. After making surfboards, I became a permanent lifeguard, and that was my career for 30 years. And I retired as a captain of the lifeguards in Los Angeles County.
Yeah.
So I thank Velzy for all that. I do have, I don't know if you can see these, but I'm gonna try. Can you hold this for a
Best captain ever.
Thank
you, Sonny.
This is after we got all of our balsa boards from Velzy. This is our Hermosa Seal Surf Club. A bunch of proud teenagers with their balsa boards.
Sonny's gonna hate me. 2
What?
Medal of Valor awards.
Well, wait a second. I got the mic. This is a picture that Bing took. We drove around Cayena Point to Sunset Beach. And this is John McFarland joined us, Rick Stoner, Mike Bright, me on top. And Bing took this photograph of the car we bought. It was a 1937 Chevy. It sort of ran. And we'd pile the boards on the thing. And we got around in that for 3 months over there. I don't know if you can see that.
It's great.
I think that's it for me. Bing, did I forget anything?
You remembered a whole bunch.
I just wanted to thank Velzy for everything he inspired in me, and he was a great man. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonny. I'm going to give a warning here. The next speaker, I might have to take off with a hook, but we're going to bring up Roy Breen.
Yeah. Yeah, Roy.
Tell us how it all started, Roy.
Good afternoon. My voice comes and goes. But I met Dale Velzy first in 1948. And at that time, I was 10 years old. And knew him there in and out. He was still in Hermosa. And eventually, 2 years later, I decided I needed to see if I could make the move from Hermosa to Manhattan. The people up there by the pier, Bing, Greg, Velzy, they were much better surfers, and I wanted to get better. So I made the move, and at first I got initially hassled by a few times by some of the guys up there in the Manhattan Surf Club. And Dale had told me that if I did, just to tell them to talk to him. And so right away, they 3 or 4 of them said, you can't leave your board here, you can't take a shower. And I said, why don't you go talk to Velzy? No. Just do anything you want. And I was one of those people who knew him then, and he made racing boards for me, he made balsa boards for me. But later on, he ended up going south, and he was living in San Clemente, and I was living in Capistrano Beach and working for Chart House. And I was in and out of there a lot, and I'd see Dale all the time. And he loved to cook, he loved to eat, and anytime I was in Hawaii, I knew that he loved something called Calbee ribs. And there was a store in Maui that he loved. So I went to the store and I mentioned Velzy, and the guy goes, oh, I know him well. And I said, well, I want to get a big box and bring him to Dale. And they said, okay, just go to the hardware store, they'll give you the box, come here. They fill it with Calbee ribs, and then he'd freeze it overnight. I'd pick it up in the morning, go to the airport, bring it to Dale. And as soon as the door opened and he saw what I had, his face just lit up. And he wanted to cook them right then. But we'd start the next day and he'd cook those ribs. And I was fortunate enough to know him from the time I was 10. And then the whole time I was down there, he and I and Fran spent a lot of time together. And I was with him right up until the evening that he died. And among other things that some people don't think about with Dale, yes, charismatic, absolutely. But Dale was also very, very generous. Generous with everything. For me, I didn't have to be home at any certain time when I was 10, 11, 12. And I'd be sitting on the curb outside the shop, and he'd say, "Where are you going for dinner?" I'd go, "I don't know." And he'd either say, "Well, get in the car," and he'd take me home and cook, or he'd say, "Let's go over here," and we'd walk to the hibachi. And we'd eat there. But later on, down south, I did get to know him a lot more. And during that period of time, I really began to notice how generous he was. Very, very generous. His friends, anything they needed, he wanted to give to them. And Sonny, and I think Bing also mentioned George Kapu. George is somebody who followed Dale from Hawaii to Manhattan. And then eventually, quite a while later, George was different. He didn't have regular trunks. He went to a war surplus and he bought these white Navy pants and he cut them off just below the knees. And he surfed differently. He wasn't trying to beat the wave. He was much more graceful. And eventually George ended up moving back to Hawaii. And while I was over there years later, I'd stop by and see him. He was working as a beach boy down in Waikiki. And we'd talk, and he told me he had throat cancer. And he struggled. And I said, "Do you ever get in the water?" And he said, "Yeah, I've got a board, and I keep it here at Publix, and I go out occasionally and go paddling or surfing." And so I checked in every time I get there, and one time I go there and find out that his board had been stolen, and so he didn't have a board. So I'm flying back to California. I go straight to Dale and Fran's house, and I tell him what happened and that George does not have a board. He's got cancer, and you need to make him a board. And he just looked at me and didn't say anything. And I said, "I'm going back over in about 3 weeks. I'd like to take the board with me." And didn't say anything. About 4 days later, he calls me and he said, "George's board is ready." So I went, picked up his board. Now I had to get it glassed. Hobie's glasser was, what was his name?
Jerry Martin.
No, I'm thinking it was
Danny Bronner.
Danny Bronner. It was Danny Bronner, so I talked to Danny and said, I told him what we were doing, and
It's working.
he said, "Okay." And so he said, what colors do you want it?" I didn't know, so I said, "Let's make it the colors of Hawaiian royalty, scarlet and gold." And then here's a Velzy sticker to put on it. And about 10 days later, he says the board is ready. I came by, got it, it was beautiful. I thought I was going to be flying to Hawaii about 10 days later. And before I buttoned the board up, I thought that I had not taken a photograph. So I called Dale and I said, "Hustle up here to the park in Capitol Beach." And he did. And somebody took a photo of us holding this board, and it was truly beautiful. And all the guys in the shop that knew George, they had signed the box, and all the Patterson brothers and Danny. And I get to Hawaii, and it's all packaged up, and I ask on the beach, and they say George is at home. So I went to his house, which is a small apartment up about 3 floors. And so I went up there and knocked on the door and asked him, "I need you to come downstairs." And so his health was bad, but he came on down, and we walked to the car, and I pulled the box down, and I put the box down, and as I'm starting to open it up, George is rubbing his hand on it, and he says, I know all these guys. I know every one of them. And So I get it open, and I lift all the padding off, and I showed this board to him. I said, this board is for you. It's a present to you from your friends. And he looked at it, and he just struggled. And all of a sudden, this big Hawaiian just starts sobbing. He was on his hands and knees, just crying and crying. He couldn't believe that his friends had done this. And eventually, I helped him get it back upstairs. I asked him if I could take it down to Publix, and he said no, his friends would. So he eventually got down there. George would ride it. I'd stop in and see him, and he'd say, I feel so good when I'm on the water. And maybe a month later, I stopped and was told that George had passed away. But maybe a month later, I checked and I asked those guys, I said, I don't see George's board in the rack. And they said, no, his son came over and cut the lock and took the board. And I thought, well, maybe he's gonna ride the board. I said, what's he gonna do with it? And they said, by now he's sold it and bought drugs. But anyway, Dale Velzy was extremely honest, extremely giving, one of a kind, and his paddle out, I'm not gonna even get started on that one. Anybody who was not there missed a happening. There was nothing like it. And I don't think there were any film or anything on that thing, but it was spectacular. Anyways, it's wonderful to see all of you here today, and enjoy the moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think it's now a good time to hear from Dale's son, Matt Velzy, who was born when the shop was opened in Manhattan Beach, or opened in Manhattan Beach. Been there a couple years, and I think you've seen a business card that comes up and says Velzy and son. This is the son to talk about his dad.
Thank you. A proud day today for me. Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming. I just want to mostly say thank you to the people that made this possible. And I got a list, of course, Bing and Roy. Thank you very, very much, you guys. You were the main thing to have the real story. And thank you for it. Appreciate it. I want to also thank Paul Holmes, Nat Warshaw, Buddy Bone from Lifeguards, Fran Hoff, my stepmom, Carol Hogan, who's here, Gary Crum from the Lifeguards, Chip Post from the Lifeguards, John Bernardus, John Leningers, and Sonny Vardaman, Tom Horton from the South Bay Board Riders Association, Jane Schmaus, and the Jacobs family.
Jacqueline May.
Anybody else that I've forgotten?
Jacqueline May.
Sorry?
Jackie May.
And Jackie May especially. Sorry. I had her at the top of the list, and I started the second one down. But thank you, Jackie, so much, because she's the one who made this whole thing possible. All I did was show her a photograph that was on Facebook one day of a shop that had never been seen before, because it was in someone's photo album or something. Anyway, it showed up one day, and I mentioned it to her, and that was 11 years ago. And she's carried this whole ball all these years and got these other guys involved with it because they were the ones who knew. This was the first surfboard shop on the planet. And I'm proud to say that. Anyway, I just want to thank all you guys for coming out here tonight and helping to honor my father. It's really an honor for him. And he would be so stoked. He would be so stoked right now. He'd be crying. And so thank you for all coming down and showing honor to my dad. I hope I haven't forgotten anybody, because all you people know who you were and helping out Jackie to get this thing done. Thank you. I do appreciate it.
I don't know if anyone else would like to get up and share their memories of Dale. If not, there's
Somebody
still
remembers
refreshments and food out there. Does anybody have any questions for any of the people that presented?
Yeah, one. Where's Jackie May?
Jackie May is right there. Was there a question for her?
Scared.
Was there a question?
Yeah. How many years did you put into this event?
This event? A week, 2 weeks? Mark did the event, almost single-handedly. Oh, the plaque. Oh. Tom Horton, the president of South Bay Board Riders, got the plaque for us through Green Hills, which they do beautiful plaques. Great plaque. And Bing paid the first. What?
How many years did it take?
To make the plaque? Oh, the whole process was 11 years.
I forgot to thank Mark Shoemaker and the Hermosa Beach, this place, for making this thing possible and making us feel welcome. Manhattan Beach, it wasn't happening, and this place is. So thank you, Mark. Thank you, Hermosa Beach Museum.
Any other questions you'd like to have answered? Go ahead. Yeah.
Can I say something quick?
Sure. Please introduce yourself.
Hi. My name is Tom Rice. I'm the third. My father and Dale were very good friends. He passed away, my father, like 4 months ago. And so I know you'd love to be here and say something on behalf of this event. I just have one quick funny story. I'm 58 now, so about 46 years ago, I was 12 years old, and I was trying to convince my dad to have Velzy ship me a board. And but the big glitch was it was going to be a shortboard. So I asked him to, I asked my father if Velzy would shape me of this board, and about 2 weeks later he came back and said, well, Velzy's like really having a hard time shaping this shortboard for you. You know, he doesn't want to really do it, I guess. But he did it anyways. I said, I want these fin boxes, 3 fins and fin boxes in it. And so lo and behold, he shaped me this Velzy shortboard. It was like, 5 foot 5 inches, something like that. And talking about the generosity of Velzy, he did this for my father and myself, and I always cherished that board. Of course, I didn't think much of it, and I sold that board to somebody else and got another board. Now I'm regretting, that. But I just want to say something, just felt like I definitely don't qualify to be up here for everybody else that's spoken today, but I just felt like I would say something on my dad's behalf and how much he loved Velzy and how much time they spent on the beach together, hiding under the pier. And he used to tell the story about him and Velzy would flip this dory over underneath the Manhattan Beach Pier and put sand up around the edges, and they would sleep in that underneath the dory all summer long. And they would hide out there. And, they thought they ran away from home, and then they were hanging out on the beach all the time. But, my grandmother came to my dad and said, when you and Velzy were sleeping under that freaking dory under the pier, I knew you guys were there. I'd come and check on you at night. So, And they all came up with this corny saying, I think, all you guys, and it said, in life, don't make waves you can't ride. So I always remember that, and just so many fond memories of all you guys and Bing, and he always talked about Bardman all the time, and all you guys, and I remember all these stories, and seeing the faces and everybody come up here and talking is bring back memories. I'm here with my cousin Robbie, who is Dugan Yakel's son, and my grandfather was Jack Yakel, and they're all just South Bay guys, and so I just felt like I should come up here and say something on my dad's behalf, and thank you guys for putting this all together, and your hard work, and everything you've done for Dale. Really appreciate it.
That's
Thank
your
you.
dad, Bing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else like to come up and say a few words? Carol. How are we going to get Carol up here? I don't know. Careful. Come on, Carol. In the meantime, or we can wait?
He nicked me. He became crazy.
So Carol Hogan is Bob Hogan's wife, and we'll let her tell her story. That's good.
It's so cool. He was yeah. My dad was a year older than Dale. And he passed in 2015. He did all the real good friends are great. Good to see you back.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to the people who put all of this together. It has brought back so many incredible memories. It's hard to believe, hearing the stories that I've heard, that I actually was there for them. And when Matt was maybe 7 years old and Malia was just a couple years younger, I think that was about the time that my husband Bob was building, or wanted to build, a surfboard for the Catalina race, because he was the originator of the race, and he wanted a special board. And he had talked to Dale, and he had talked to other shapers, Hobie, and he figured out what he needed in a board, and those guys helped him put it together. That was one part of my life with him, was the paddleboard racing. The second thing that I want to point out is about Dale. Many people don't acknowledge what a wonderful horseman he was. I mean, he was a cowboy from way back. He must have been born into it, I think, because when we moved down here from Washington, we brought my horse along and put it in a stable called Tar Farms. And right across the way, as luck would have it, was your dad's little compound where he held court every Friday night over a big campfire. So Dale was talented in so many respects. It's just amazing. And he would have these big barbecues every Friday night, and all the cowboys and cowgirls would come up and show up with their partners and just sit around and talk story and stuff. And it was just great. It was that neat little corner of the world where you could go and talk about things you really loved. And I want to say that if they were here today, they would be so pleased with what the committee has done. And especially, where's Jackie? I think she deserves a huge hand of applause, and her committee team for that. In case you're wondering, I drove my Mini Cooper into a tree, and I have 2 broken ankles, so that's why I'm not standing up at the microphone to talk to you. But I just wanted to show my appreciation for the committee and what they've done for bringing back these memories and keeping them alive, because they're really important to this community as a whole. I mean, it's not just Manhattan or Hermosa or Redondo, it's what you guys did with the boards and everything in the years when you began all that. when you began the shaping, and then the surfboards, Greg Knoll, Bing Copeland, all right next door on the same highway. You know, I mean, what they've done for this community is amazing. And I just think it's something that no one can equal, nor would they ever want to. And so thank you again for providing my family, and probably a whole lot of other families, with the memories that we have of surfing in the old times. Thanks very much.
I gotta get out of here.
I can't read it. I'm not exactly sure how the relationship works. I think it's like a first cousin once removed or twice removed. But Bill Medley, did you want to come up and talk? Bill Medley, some of you might know from a group called the Righteous Brothers. Dale's cousin married a gentleman named Arnold Medley, and Bill is their son.
Well, I don't have any clean stories. I mean, Dale is my cousin, and we're kind of from a strict family, religious family, and Dale is a little older than me, and he kind of took a different path, and I said, I think I like that path. And I took it, and I think Dale and I turned out all right. But I just loved him. He was such a real guy. I mean, he's a California cowboy is what he is, and just loved him. And every once in a while, Dale would call. I was raised in Santa Ana in Orange County, and but I moved to Newport Beach about 50 years ago. And Dale would call once in a while, and he said, Bill, I'm coming down to Newport Beach. Let's have dinner and a couple of drinks. Well, we had dinner, and we had a couple of drinks, which turned into a couple of dozen drinks. But I just loved him, and I just he was kind of my hero. I mean, he was a real guy, and great cowboy. You look so much like your old man. It's stupid. But anyway, thank you for this, and thank you for Dale, and he certainly deserves it, and thank you very much.
Anyone else want to talk? Have any questions? Thank you all for coming.